Hello everybody. At least I hope you can hear me. Actually, on the topic of hearing me, I'm hoping that Quindy's not too busy with, her real life right now, so she can give me some feedback, and maybe Bob and Julie if they're on. While I was setting up, I was freaking out because I'm like, why isn't the mic responding? Because I always test the mic and everything. Wave hi. She's like, I'm gonna get bored of this really soon. I only like to sit on you if I can fall asleep and splay out everywhere. But while researching that issue, which turned out to be me not scrolling down to the bottom of the little audio chart that shows me the levels and stuff, it looked like maybe the input was too low on the actual mic. So how I turned it up on OBS, but maybe it wasn't right on the mic. So do I sound louder, too loud? I can try. I took the volume down here a bit. Do I remember how to undo that? Apparently not. But I can change it on the other window because I left that up. Not too loud. Is it loud enough though? Because I know green users, you've said that Bob in particular finds me a little too soft-spoken to be able to hear in a non-annoying way. And I've had comments on some of the videos too, I think, that it's a little low. So the reason there are no kitties today, and the reason I was worried about my mic, I did a little rearrangement in this area, and this morning I was sweeping things up because the cat that I told you has the nickname of the Menace is the first cat I've ever had that decided she's into toilet paper rolls. And she doesn't unspool it. She wants to like attack the whole roll. So she bites giant chunks out of it. And there was just toilet paper everywhere. And then also little chunks of cardboard because she likes to bite that as well. So I thought I might as well sweep all that up now that we've moved some stuff around. And I think she's had as much fun as she's gonna have with the mess. Although as I was sweeping it up and I made a little pile, she laid down literally on the pile. Like, don't take my work. And I was trying to get a picture of that, but of course she moved before I could. So when she decided to go sleep in her bed, which I had not moved yet, I'm like, this may be a let sleeping cats lie moment. So the sleeping cat is sleeping. So I'm gonna leave the volume where it is. I'll try asking again, because right now I'm pointed at the mic. So when I start to paint, it might be too low, and we can look at changing things. It's probably this button is what I want on OBS. I have to put the mouse far away and then my hand gets all... That is not the button. I'm sure it's there somewhere, but I can do it on the other gizmo. So I will switch over to desk view and add more light so that we can see in desk view. I'm not gonna take that off right now. So what am I going to do today? Well, first of all, if you see someone come into the chat, let them know I'm going to be showing a new thing. So I'm going to wait a little bit to do that and make sure whoever wants to be here is here. And I wanted to, so last week, where is it? Last week I did kind of a critique of this miniature and then a bit of repainting. Clearly I forgot to repaint that part. So now you would, if you were going to ReaperCon, I can't speak for every convention, if you were going to ReaperCon, that would be considered the kind of damage that likely happened in transit and would not be held against you. If on the other hand there was a big drip of paint, like if that was white paint instead of a scratch, that shows that you weren't completely attentive to tidying up the mini and making everything look nice. So it wouldn't be like a huge issue in painters or anything. Like you wouldn't, get a certificate because you did that. But just to explain that, preparation, there's some mold lines on this one too that are unfortunately in prominent areas and somewhat visible. So, if you had a mold line like on the bottom of the loot, or a scratch, like those things aren't going to drag you way down. A preponderant, you know, if I have both mold lines and I've got spots of paint that I didn't clean up, those are like two things kind of showing that I wasn't really being attentive to, you know, prep and neatness and all that kind of thing. Which again, isn't a huge component in painters, but is a component. I kind of was trying to think about my success, because the issue with this miniature is that I had painted it with a very limited palette, and I didn't really have a very dark, you know, like an almost black and white. So mainly I just had to bump up the contrast, and I was trying to make a little more variation in the mid-tones of each area, so that the shirt would be lighter than the feathers and the loot, and hopefully help each of those kind of stand out. I did not fix anything on the feet, which I think looks fine on the camera. When it was on the shelf, I was kind of like, you know, they shouldn't be like bright like this, but I think I probably should have just nudged them up a little. It's not a huge thing. I mean, having a really defined focal point is more important than, and more helpful to your miniature than painting every area of it up to the exact same standard, so that you kind of make it, you know, monotone, even though you've got a lot of contrast. It seems weird, but if everything goes up really light and really dark, then nothing can stand out from each other. There's not contrast overall, because everything is treated that way, if that makes sense. So I mean, I think it's slightly better. Do I think it's like amazingly better? I don't know, probably not. Some things you can kind of fix after, you know, you can neaten something up or make something, you know, I made the shirt a little bit brighter and more green and stuff. Sometimes the issue is like color choices and value choices that you made at the beginning stage, and it's a lot harder to address those with a touch-up thing. But, and if you're into game painting, don't leave yet, because I actually want to kind of talk about how this kind of thing can help you, because I don't think the only way of being better at painting is to spend hours and hours, you know, 50 hours, 100 hours, whatever, on a single miniature and go win a contest. There are lots of different kinds of better. Faster is better if you're trying to paint a lot of miniatures to play, and getting better results with less work is better. So what I think can be instructive for someone in that position is to kind of look at, you know, every 3 or 6 months, grab some of your stuff and kind of look at it together and see if there's any commonalities of things that you don't think are great, or things you know, remember painting that you could have been more effective or something. I mean, faster, or gotten there in fewer steps. So when I look at miniatures that I've painted for the show recently, now this isn't done, but it is the start of the problem I'm about to talk about. So not so much this guy. We'll talk about him separately, but we've got this one, this owlbear, and this owlbear, and the bird, and the clear guy, if you remember that, and then the start of the evil mermaid. And what I think all of these have in common, not quite as much this one, is the bases are like almost a little too dark and dull. Like, I don't want people to be looking at the base instead of the figure, but it also shouldn't just be this mishmash of boring. So I don't, you know, there's a lot of light here. There's less light where I put my work in progress stuff, and it's good because it helps me see things in more of a normal lighting situation, which is definitely what's going to be happening if you're gaming with them. You're going to be in somebody's basement or dining room, you know, rooms that are traditionally not the best lit. So, you know, you want to look at things, when you do this assessment, you want to look at things in regular lighting and start there before you know, go to your paint desk and kind of look at them closer up, and also far away. You know, look at them at the distance. People will often see them on the table. This is actually important for people who are trying to enter contests too, because this is where you grab people's attention so that they do that. But it's like super extra important if you're painting miniatures that are going to be seen at a distance. So I can only simulate that so much here, but I think you can see that, you know, there's kind of a dark and boring base thing going on with all of these figures. And interestingly, I think bases are kind of a useful place to look when you start trying to assess other people's work and figure out what they're doing that you might be able to incorporate into what you're doing. It's simple materials. It can be easier for us to see, oh, they're like doing a lot of contrast, or they're putting all these colors in there instead of just making it a gray rock. For me, I actually found it very helpful to just kind of zero in on some of the things. I was like, I love their work. What am I not doing to get something that's kind of like this? And focusing that way helped me see it. Obviously, I don't apply it all the time, and that happens more when I'm trying to paint fast miniatures the way I might if I were painting gaming figures, because I'm doing it here on the stream, and then also, you know, part of my brain is busy when I'm on the stream. The part that might say, hey, dum-dum, that's too dark. But also, maybe my lesson here is if I'm going to do washes, I need to start with lighter value colors, then do the wash with more of a medium value color, and then come in and add, you know, if I need to, I can add darkness. Adding darkness is relatively easy. But going lighter like this, I mean, I'm going to try and do it on top of this, but it would probably be easier if I just started lighter in the first place. And now that it's in the light, I can see these little color notes and stuff, but I couldn't really see that when it was on the shelf. So that would be like, you know, you wouldn't necessarily have to fix the miniatures you already painted if you're gaming and it's like, nope, it's time for the next set of miniatures for our RPG group. We're not going to use these again. If it's an army or like a unit that you're painting for a skirmish game, maybe you do want to try some touching up because you're continuing to use those figures. But I totally get it if, you know, your 2 paint pile is giant and you just want to go on to the next one. I just think it's worth doing this where I can also look at, you know, compare this figure and this figure. Let's take these guys out of the camera's focus zone. So I would say that this is a more successful figure than this because I did more of that. This is a much lighter color. This is a medium color. There's some really dark. There's some brighter colors. There's some duller colors. You know, if we don't look at the unfinished base right now, the whole, you know, having something that draws the eye and helps the person want to look at the miniature is a little more there. And then also using that kind of contrast between the overall midtones to help break it up so that I can clearly see like, okay, that is her skin, even though it's interrupted visually. So these guys are clearly something else. So even if I have to look a little closer to figure out exactly what they are, I at least kind of have the idea of this figure that she's there and then she's got something else draped over her, something or someone else, as it turns out. The tail is not finished either. So hopefully that gives, you know, and then what I would take from that as a gaming painter or as a contest display painter, because this is one of those things that sometimes display people think doesn't apply to them, and it so applies to them because, again, you're starting here. You're on the table. You know, your miniature is here and my miniature is here. People passing by are probably going to spend more time looking at this one than this one, just because of the color choice. So as a gaming painter, you can start making a note that breaking up you know, not using like mid-tones for everything, but breaking up kind of your starting point for the various areas can really help make the figure more legible. And then you can kind of do what I did with this one, is where I like really only paid attention to here, and like for the table purposes, nobody really cares what's happening with the feet. Their feet, they're there. We just throw a little paint on them, do a little wash and quick dry brush, the end. So getting better can be being more efficient, taking fewer steps, figuring out bad habits you have, and you know, then you use the next 3 months to try and paint, you know, try and address whatever, you know, let's say it's I've got to vary the mid-tones a little more, and I'm making the bases too dark. So I might just pick one, or you could pick two, and try and think about those things as you're painting in your X miniatures. And then after that 3 months, grab them and like, does it seem like you're getting a little better there? Is there something you felt like you did it the hard way and it took too long, and that's something you can work on. So improving your process and kind of how you approach things, like it can be worth taking 5 minutes before painting anything, even in a speed paint contest, to think about, okay, I want the skin to be lighter, I want this to be darker, I want that, and keep that in mind as you go. It's like, I assume they still have essay questions in exams and stuff at schools. And I would always take a minute and do that outline that the teacher talked about, and I would score very high. I wrote great essays that teachers loved because I did the things they told you to do. But so it was worth it. It was worth it even in a time-sensitive situation to take the time to make a plan. So I know when you're trying to paint fast, it feels like you got to just be painting, but making a plan can ultimately save you time and make it less of a headache. So hopefully that makes sense. Everybody's very quiet. I have no idea if I'm too loud or too soft or too boring, but I shall soldier on. I did not finish getting my photo thing set back up, which was part of the moving stuff around. So I'm getting the cat adjusted to having her bed somewhere else, and hopefully I'll be able to set up the cube tonight or tomorrow and start taking pictures again, so I can do a before and after of the little bird person, who is, in case someone missed it last week, Kobzar Soloveco, if you're looking for them on the Reaper website. Masara said the sound is good for them. Thank you. I have a history of being a little too low, and we tried messing with something with the mic, so I'm just trying to get some feedback of whether I need to put it up, put it down. So yes, hopefully pictures will be forthcoming. My fear now is that the kittens are going to want to sit in the photo cube, which historically I've left set up all the time on my little photo desk. So if I'm doing something and I think a work in progress picture might be helpful for, you know, showing something in a class or an article or something, I can just kind of scooch over there, take the picture, and get back to painting really quick. Yuva Tholion is asking, if I wanted this color scheme for the bird, is there something I could do to make it pop and catch the eye more at the table? And I would say at the table or on the contest shelf. I'd probably have made the shirt even a bit lighter again than I did. And maybe use slightly more saturated colors on the actual bird's head and then the beak as well. Which, I mean, there's a bit of it. There's a bit more saturation. And it's not, like, the design of this particular figure is such that if you paint these flowers anything lighter or brighter, they're going to stand out a lot. And that, you know, that is part of the story of the figure. So that's not like a huge problem, as long as your eye gets up here eventually. But I would definitely, you know, you can see here that if we put this in black and white, there's not a lot of contrast between the pant leg and the bird leg part. So I just try to have, you know, this start a little darker probably, and this start a little lighter would be the main thing I would do. And if I did that, I could probably go with an even like darker wood, like a mahogany, but then that would pop the flowers out more. So maybe that wouldn't be a great plan. I'm not the greatest at doing some of this stuff I'm telling you, but when I do it, my miniatures typically turn out better. So this was definitely just sit down and paint miniature. There was a set of paints that had come out. And I was at an event and I had nothing else to paint, so I'm like, I'm going to try painting this miniature just with those paints. They were all fairly desaturated and there wasn't a really dark one or like a white. So that's why it ended up, partly why it ended up being a little subdued. It's less subdued now because I went and got some other colors and included the greens and the brighter yellows, I think, too. So I like those subdued colors. I helped pick some of them out, but the intention of that set was never to be you're only going to paint with that set of paint. Some figures is just kind of easier or harder. Like with a person, the face is surrounded by hair, so that gives you, you know, you can make the hair lighter or darker, or like, you know, bright saturated red, so it's still dark, and maybe it's not a totally different value than the skin, but there's a difference. And this is, you know, a standalone head. And I found that I've had similar problems with characters that have hairstyles that are really close to their head, that it makes it tougher to pop the face out. So hopefully that made sense. If that didn't completely answer your question, let me know. I thought it would be fun, instructive, I don't know, to compare these two guys, which are, these are both owlbears, and they're both kind of white owlbears. Oh, you're very welcome, Italian. You've Tholion, lion. I'm sorry, I'm very bad at saying things out loud, I guess. They didn't make us spell out loud or do that kind of thing when I went to school. And in both cases, there were, you know, I painted these on the show, so somewhere there are shows. Do I know which number? Absolutely not. This one was first. This was around the time the D&D movie was coming out, because I was kind of obsessed, and I wanted to paint an owlbear that was like the D&D movie. This was a little while after ReaperCon last year, so probably September, October. And then these will be up on YouTube, because the way back shows, you can watch a lot of stuff on Twitch, but eventually it scrolls off. But Reaper, in fact, Quindy in the chat, puts them up on YouTube. So as I did things that weren't great, I left them so that I could do this show one day. So let's kind of compare them, and then we'll look at each of them individually, and maybe I'll fix some stuff. So did this, you know, next to each other, this is a very warm type of gray for the shading, and this is a cool type of gray. So that's, you can see how different gray and white can be. This one is not quite white, really. Like, you need shading, you need to define the feathers and stuff. You know, I need to kind of bring out these muscles and things. And this is, you know, a very dynamic and complicated pose, so I definitely wanted to do some of that stuff, but I don't think I put enough white back in. And we'll look just at this guy for a minute. So there is one thing that I deliberately did very wrongly. Well, not very wrongly, less optimally, and I won't mention it right away so that you can take a guess and then see if you were correct. So the owlbear in the D&D movie, I think, is modeled after this kind of bird that I do not recall, but I had photos of it as I was painting. It's like a white bird with little black or dark gray line markings all over it. And I can probably go through my phone and find this if we need to. So I didn't do that part because I knew I was going to change other stuff. But when you look at the D&D owlbear, and I think I do have a picture of that. You know, the part where I said I could look at my phone might not be true because I think I left it elsewhere. I'm so bad at that. My husband is always freaking out. He's like, "Did you leave your phone at home again?" I'm like, "Yes, I did." I don't have great pockets at home, so anyway, but in the scenes, it does look more gray. In the toys and like drawings of it and stuff, it is much more white with these little black marks. But if I wanted to say, is it more like the movie guy? I could live with it. Well, movie girl, I guess. I use guy as a general term. I think I do want to try to make it a little whiter and maybe paint those stripes on, which would involve me pressing pause for a minute so I can go find my phone, but we'll see if we get there. But let's look at other aspects. So the base of this one isn't, you know, as bad. It could use, I mean, it's not as like dark and dull as the other one. It could use a little more like color variation. It doesn't have to have that. I'm just, you know, I think that adds a little something, and maybe I could go up a little lighter, but this green is suitably subdued because, you know, that's one of the things with painting white and black. Then if you start putting strong colors in, it can compete with your main thing. So the eyes being super blue, which I think they are in the movie Owlbear, is intended, you know, that's going to be the focal point. I went a little more red on the tongue for a similar reason. So if your attention is more drawn here, that's what I want. But if I did like super grass green down here, then we'd be looking at not the best part. Because I probably also, you know, both for play and display purposes, probably should have glued this guy down to a nice rectangular base so he was sturdy and steady. But I wanted to get, you know, again, a Reapercon in the painter's category, that would not be a huge detraction. It wouldn't be a detraction at all. Like the base, you can hurt yourself by doing a crummy base, and you can help yourself a little by doing a nice base, but there's sort of a middle ground where it's like, I did what I needed to do with what was there. So it's kind of a neutral factor in the overall thing. So the blue eyes are good, but let's try reproducing the circumstances of my shelf again. Really, it's a little dark. The blue part could go up even lighter to stand out. So that's what I noticed when he was on my shelf, is that what looks like, you know, a nice really bright blue here didn't so much there. In a similar vein, you know, I wanted to keep these claws black, and it's like on the edge of, would I add just a little more highlights to make it more of a shiny, fierce looking thing? I'm pretty happy with them, but arguments could be made either way, I think. So the eye for sure, I think more white. And then the big thing that I messed up on purpose is, so he has these little skin flaps on his wings, which the movie bear does not, but this is the sculpt I chose, so I had to paint those something. And this is where you can get into trouble with recipes. So that's why I wanted to do this as an example. This is a fine skin color. There are figures I would be happy to paint this skin color on, but it is pretty saturated compared to the rest of this figure. So I feel like your eyes are just going straight to those skin flaps, which is not really what I want to have happen. So if I just had, you know, this is one of my standard skin recipes and I'm going to use this one, that's where sometimes you can have like colors kind of clash, or something's not popping the way you thought it would. It can be because you always use the exact same colors for gold and the exact same colors for skin of, you know, whatever value. And so in this case, it's not, I could probably still use a recipe, but I want my recipe book to include, here's like a more neutral skin tone, here's this is like a rosy skin tone, this one's a little oranger, this one's like dark and warm, this one's dark and cool. Or I want to like pick a starting color that seems like it goes with this, and then use some of these colors to mix into the skin. So I could start mixing the skin with this dark gray, and that's certainly going to dull it down. How am I going to fix that? Did I think about that part? I did not. So we go to the Beyond the Kit paint set, which is all the Learn to Paint kit sets plus the expansions. Let's see what we get. So these are the skin tones that are included in the Learn to Paint kits and expansions. Actually, only Layer Up has skin tones, just in case anyone hasn't bought those yet. And a lot of them are kind of warm, but they're browner. So something like that, but probably still even dulled down from this. And then I will use, this one is a nice dull highlight color, so I'll use that. And then if I'm recalling correctly, this is one of the grays I used on there. This is a slightly warm gray, which is kind of color I like with natural things. And I don't think we need that. All right, these, I shook my other paints before I started. These I did not, so they're just gonna get a little brief spin on my vortex mixer. And probably shake more than I'm shaking even now. See, now that the sound is louder, is the vortex mixer more annoying? That's something else to investigate. All right. So there are the colors of that I was quickly painting before the show. So I keep forgetting that guy, like I see him on my shelf and I think he's done because I painted the white over there. And then I'm like, oh, right, no, he's got those skin flaps. He's still not ready for his critique. So I'll just compare the two starting colors. So I want to go more brown than pink because, you know, I kind of want the red on his tongue to be what draws attention. And I want to be duller. So I could go look on my shelf or pack or whatever, however you store your miniatures. I could find a skin color that starts out a little less saturated than the one I picked. But knowing how to tone down a color is a useful thing, so I figured I will give an example of that. And gray is not the only answer, but it is an answer, and certainly a feasible one when I've used that exact color on the figure. So start conservative, because, you know, some colors are more powerful than others. So this both, this both made it duller, but also made it a little bit darker. So I don't know how much shine there is on there. And that is typically, that's not unusual, unless you're like mixing white into something. If you mix two things that are kind of similar in value, it's likely to get a little darker. It's just a color mixing thing that happens. And I'm okay with that because I want a little bit of darkness. And now that we're looking at it up close, we can see that I've got skin color on feathers and some, you know, I really didn't do the feathers on this wing either. I'm going to paint over that part because otherwise the reddishness is going to stay in our view, and that will make it harder for us to tell whether this color is a better choice. So I'm not anti having recipes. I absolutely use recipes sometimes. But I do now kind of stop and think about the overall figure. Like, is that like a super yellow NMM gold, and I've painted like this guy. There's yellow here, but this is not like bright, sunshiny orange yellow. If I did that, like that seriously would be the only thing you look at on there. So just judging from like the base coat, I think it's already, you know, a little better. But it's still, because there's like not really any of this going on anywhere, it's still kind of, I'm so glad I did that with my nice paintbrush. It's still kind of like a little too, you know, it'll look so gray here because it's not in context with the stuff on the figure. Like this really looks like gray more than skin, I think. Let's confirm. So I mean that looks more like a warm gray than a skin color. And we'll grab the actual gray. That is warm gray. And we'll grab the actual skin color. So let's try that on this guy and see how it looks. It probably needs to be a little lighter too, actually, because you know he's a pretty light color except for where the claws are, and this part kind of is more of a wing part than a claw part, so I don't want it. Well, I mean, it's not at all a claw part, but I don't really want it to stand out as much as it is. So let's make a less dark version, and I'll also pop that on here. So that also makes it look a little less gray. Let's see where that goes. So I think that's probably less obtrusive, and it'll get lighter because I'm going to, you know, do a little bit of highlighting on it. So I think that will make it kind of integrate better. But I guess we'll find out, won't we? There's still some of that pink showing. That rosy skin tone was a powerful skin tone. And I decided to do this first before trying to whiten up the fur. Because, you know, I have to fix some of those things. And if I get a little white on the skin where I don't want it, I think that's going to be easier to fix than trying to make these edges all pretty and stuff. Now adding white and lighter colors, well, white especially, typically dulls things out even more. So, you know, white, black, and gray are all things that dull other colors. So if I just keep adding this color to here, you know, will it look skin enough? I mean, I might be okay with it, but I can come back and get a little bit of that original color and warm it up if I feel that is necessary. I added just a little bit of water there because colors with more white like that, I find, tend to be a little thicker and sometimes need a little bit of water added to not be so opaque that it's going to show in this part. For me, I mean, I used to water my paints down like a ton more. Well, not a ton. I mean, yeah, a ton. I don't know. I used to water my paints probably closer to what you see Anne do on her show, if you watch, which is, she's on every day from, I think, 11:30 Texas time. Probably shouldn't have painted that under part because where it being an under part. I think that this side needs another coat because that other side sort of got two coats of less saturated stuff because I changed, you know, I did the darker one and then lighter one. Miss some of that pinkiness there. So I will check them. I think it looks a little, you know, I don't mind if it looks a little leathery and whatnot, because that's like a leathery looking skin flap to my mind. Yeah, that's too much. So I can see that I missed a few places with that more saturated color. So I'm just going to go in there to make sure that that is not going to show up. Hope, you know, I should be going over it with the white, but just in case. All right, so this is probably more effort than this needs, but partly that is to give that side of time to dry. And this one isn't sticking up as much, so really I'm just gonna be doing these highlights partly to cover up some. That pink is tenacious, I see. That is a tenacious rosy skin right there. And what the heck, we're here. I'll just have a little more on there. How's that side looking? All right, good enough. So hopefully that is now much less distracting than it originally was. I also wanted to fix his eye, but that seems like a thing to do after I do more white. So I have pure white. I have no idea if that's the one I used when I first painted him, but here we are. And I don't think I want to start with pure white, just in case. Like, I suspect that's actually going to be the correct answer, but just in case, I'm going to mix a little bit of this gray in, because I don't want, you know, I'm going to have to do some transitions from, you know, too dark. So I don't want to have those transitions look like rough and chalky. Get a paper towel, and that was super big, one of these dry brushes. Hold on, I'm just going to roll back, get a better brush. Well, not better, a more suitably sized brush. So I probably could go with this, but because I'm actually trying to be a little more specific, I will go with this one. In this case, I'm actually going to push it down into some of the recesses because I kind of have to lighten up a bunch of stuff. So I don't completely want to take away that shadow line or anything. I just want to soften it up a little. Because if you watch the show where I did this, I did very deliberately put in stuff like that. Actually, let's not leave a brush full of paint. So I forgot the part where I need to fix the feathers that the skin color got on. So let's get just a little darker. I do normally put the figures on holders, And I could with this guy, but... And I do recommend that you do, and definitely for tabletop painting. So this guy has like a solid coat of paint on everything. But if he didn't, and I was doing that over, you know, the base surface, I'd be getting my finger oils and stuff on there. And I would possibly be making the paint adhere less well. So I can see now that this is actually a grayer gray, and I used like I really went a little more brown. I probably used... Well, I swear I grabbed something. I thought I grabbed Bone Shadow. Maybe I used that. I'm not going to worry about it too much, just if there's some places where it's really obvious, I might fix it a little. Typically, I find with doing touch-ups, or if you know you've had a miniature that's been sitting on your shelf forever, like half painted or 80% painted, and you're like, I just want to finish this guy, but you don't remember what paints you used, it's more important to match the value than the exact color. In this case, that's going to be especially true because, you know, I'm doing it on edges where it's meeting another surface, so maybe it's just a different color there, like that. That happens with animals and stuff. But I do want to get... See, actually, that skin color's got a bit of that. So if I mix the skin color and gray together, I probably have a color. Or something closer to the color. I don't think it's going to be able to focus on that little niche. I can barely focus on that little niche. So I'm not going to try to make a straight line like the way the sculpt is. There's little bits of feathers sticking up, so if I just kind of do the same thing with my brush, even if I'm doing it in places where the sculpt isn't like that, it should read as, you know, a transition from skin to feathers. Because you wouldn't want that to be a super straight line, like that's not how that would look in the real world.
You have access to the one trust. And you have access to the one trust. Sorry.
And let's see, so under here is kind of a mess. It needs to be a little bit darker because it's underneath. And I cannot remember now if I finished my thought about why you should use a holder when you paint tabletop miniatures. And it's because you will, you know, I'm touching the paint a lot. If it was freshly applied paint, I would be rubbing it off. I would also be possibly and adding oils from my hand to it. That would then make subsequent attempts to put paint on work not as well in some spots. So when I have a holder, I can just move the holder around instead of moving the guy around. Yeah, I know that gray is looking conspicuously different, annoyingly. I think I probably need to just do more dry brushing now. All right, back to the dry brushing. And this brush is now very full of water, so I want to get most of that off. Probably gonna have to mix more of my gray. And I'm sure that I have gray paints that are like what I mixed, but I didn't bring them over. And grays. Definitely a case where adding white can be the right answer. So I don't know if I will end up painting the markings on it, but if I do, it's going to look more effective now because this will be lighter. I was kind of surprised when I went and looked for photos from the actual scene how dark the owlbear looked in the movie. And then I think I had found recently, I mean, not when I did the original show, I found the picture, you know, the pictures from the designer who came up with kind of the style for the owlbear. And he actually said it was his second one. Like they didn't love the first one, so he tried again and they liked that one better. So I don't know if it was originally like that's pretty much all he said. I don't know if the first one was more of a brown, you know, classic owlbear or what. So I'm gonna use this Gug umber instead of that other gray because I think it's closer to what is in the shadows of this figure. Yeah, looking at the size of him, I'm gonna, you know, dry brushing can use a decent amount of paint, and I sometimes forget that and don't mix it up. So it's not quite as dark as it was originally. It could be helpful to leave some of your original mix for comparison purposes when you're trying to remix something. Oh, speaking of, if you were here last week, you may have heard me confessing that I had started taking a painting class in gouache, and my first attempt was dismally unhappy, and I was very discouraged by that. And so I like to be open about process here because I think what goes on in our heads is oftentimes a big part of what is happening with our painting. Like how we feel about things can affect our judgment of what we're doing, or it can even affect our desire to paint at all, which is what happened. So like pretty much my to-do list for the week was like, go try this some more. See, you know, watch the video, figure out maybe what you did differently than he did, and just try again. And it took me like until Saturday night, right before, you know, the class is Sunday. It took me until then to try again. And so I did not end up submitting homework. I think I was like one of only one or two people who didn't do that. So this was my first attempt, which on reflection, looking at it later, is not as terrible as I felt like it was at the time, which is often, that happens to me all the time with miniatures, that I just felt frustrated and I hated it, and it was like, ugh. And then, you know, if I look at it 2 or 3 weeks later when I'm not full of the feelings anymore, I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. And it has gone the other way as well. Something that I felt came out really well, and I finally did the contrast and all that stuff, and I go back and I look at it sometimes just the next day even, and I'm like, well, I know what I think I did, but I don't see what I think I did, so I guess I better go do it some more. So this was the second time I tried, and this is really just like a practice sheet at this point. I wasn't going to submit that, like I was just practicing the circle before and just happened to paint. It's supposed to be a turn up. And, it doesn't even necessarily look better than the other one, but I was starting to understand how the paint works better and what, the kind of consistency he was talking about for doing this and doing that, and also flat brushes, which I don't normally use, like this, but it's straight across flat, is what he likes to use, and that, that's why you get that mark. But you're painting a round thing, so you gotta figure some of that out. So like I was working with a lot of factors of things I don't know how to do, and even though intellectually I know that there's no reason my first attempt should have gone well, like expecting it to not go well would have been very reasonable. I don't know why it got to me in that, like I've done things like that on other occasions and it doesn't get to me. I mean, I kind of had a bit of an art block thing for a few years now, so maybe it was just, that was tough jumping back on the horse kind of thing. But even though, I like missed the opportunity to get feedback and that's unfortunate, I finally did do the thing. So at least there's that. Like I can at least say I got back up on the horse. But so this kind of thing will happen because, like, you know why you don't touch a hot stove. Hey, San Shobo72. Good evening from Tennessee/Texas. So Reaper is based in Texas, and they kind of give all the times for our shows and stuff in Texas time. But I am based in Tennessee and an hour back, an hour later than Reaper. So I get confused a lot. Anyway, so we're wired to avoid pain, and that includes mental pain. So if you are like really always criticizing yourself very harshly and not being happy with your work, you are going to feel pain mentally. And one of the consequences of that can be not wanting to do the thing. Because if you don't do the thing, there's no pain. So you're not getting better if you don't do the thing. You're just avoiding the pain. So I think it's helpful to either decide, I am just doing this for fun. I just want to throw some miniatures on the table. It doesn't matter if they're amazing. I like the process. I find it soothing to come home after work and sit in front of my TV or whatever and do this. Like, be okay with that. Like, just don't expect that you're going to do that and then you're going to get results like you see people posting on Instagram or wherever. I don't know where are the kids hanging out these days? TikTok? Do people post miniature stuff on TikTok? I don't know. I'm super old, so I haven't been on TikTok. I'm aware of it as a concept, but I'm like, do I need more ways to waste time? Nope. Also, I don't always like video, even short video. It's like, let me read. I can skim. I can decide if I'm interested in this enough to watch more. I mean, I watch videos, but specific ones. Anyway, I'm getting way off the topic, which is we cause ourselves pain and that we'll do things to avoid the pain. But then there's the pain of feeling like you should be doing the thing and you're not doing the thing. And I don't know why, for me at least, and since I hear a lot of people talking about these kinds of subjects, I know that I'm not alone, why we decide that the pain of feeling bad about not doing the thing isn't as bad as, is better than trying to do the thing and not succeeding to the degree that we want. Because we're still in pain, but the human brain is a wondrous thing full of contradictions, and I guess that's one of them. So like I knew that, but I still had to work myself up to it a little bit. But understanding that that's how it works can be helpful. At least I kind of knew what was happening. And I knew that I felt bad because I wasn't doing the thing, and that I wasn't doing the thing because I was afraid of failing and feeling bad about the failure. But guaranteed, not doing the thing is the way to not get better. Like, you know, I didn't paint an amazing turnip, but I learned a lot. I understood what was happening and what was frustrating me. Well, some of. I started to understand, like, gouache is such a weird paint medium. It's not like any of the others. It's made like watercolor, but you don't paint with it like you paint with watercolor at all, because that I took some classes in. And watercolor can be frustrating because there's no forgiveness. There's at least a little forgiveness in gouache. Well, okay, no forgiveness is overstating it, but sometimes the forgiveness is like you gotta like erase the mistakes, which is not great for the paper, but can be done. So I'm doing it off screen, but I do keep testing on my hand because I did not bring a blue paper towel with me. And also I can just kind of feel the moisture then. But I'm not saying I'm recommending that you paint on your hand. I mean, there are none of the pigments that they have to put warnings on and that you really should not put on your skin in Reaper paints. But it's the intended use is for painting on a figure, and maybe you get a little paint on yourself now and then. The intended use of miniatures paint is not to paint people. They have specific paint for that. So that's interesting. I can see, and I think the camera can see, a couple of annoying white spots deep in the crevices where my original wash didn't go. Way back when. So for those who came in a little later, it's the time of year where I like to kind of get some of the other miniatures I painted through the year and use them as an opportunity to do a critique and then repaint them a little, addressing some of the stuff from the critiques. So I know there are people who are getting ready for ReaperCon right now. Gen Con is fast approaching. What did Ron say? ReaperCon is 54 days away on Thursday, which is alarming and upsetting because I decided to make a new class topic this year, and I got a lot of writing to do. I mean, some of it I can crib from other things, but some of it I need to figure out how to explain. So I am making this was supposed to be a white owlbear, and he wasn't very white, although it's blown out a little on my screen. Hopefully that is not doing that on your screen. I can turn down the exposure if he's blowing out on your screens. So unfortunately I don't have a before picture of this guy because of the whole studio setup thing. But I'm hoping that the new kittens will work with me on setting back up my little photo cube, and that they will not try to live in the photo cube. They're not kittens. If you've been here before, they're young adult cats, but they will always be kittens to me. So I have hit the claws in a few places. We'll probably try to clean that up. But in this particular session, I also wanted to talk about how kind of reviewing your work, and you know, this can include getting critiques from instructors, people, you know, on internet. I know that some people who have Patreons will do a level where you can get feedback. That it can still be worthwhile doing for tabletop to figure out things you might be doing that you could do more effectively. So if you go back and watch the video on demand of this, I've talked about some of like color choices you can make from the beginning that it's not going to change the length of the process. Like in this guy doesn't do it as much, but I noticed that like the last 3 or 4 miniatures I painted on here, on this stream, I made the bases like really dark. So I can take the opportunity to make a mental note and say, okay, I need to start with a lighter value color and not do like a super, super dark wash. I don't have to go back and fix those ones if, you know, my goal is to just get more stuff painted. But I can take the lesson from that still and apply it going forward. So I just like to do these little repaint things because most people don't do this. Like I very rarely, every now and then, but very rarely do I mess with a miniature that I've entered in a contest. It's kind of like I don't know, it's like a photograph or a souvenir. It marks a point in time, and I want to keep that record of where I was and what I was doing, painting wise. But every now and then I do it. But I like to kind of do it on the show because I don't have a great visual imagination. And I don't think I'm alone in that. So you get these critiques, and people are like, oh, well, there should be more contrast, or I don't really want to look at the face, or I hate this color that you picked, whatever thing. I mean, I am talking about more constructive critique, not the, why did you paint a stupid gnome or whatever. Ignore those people. But, you know, if you're getting like constructive critiques, or like your players are just like, oh, I didn't realize that's what that was supposed to be, or whatever. You know, you don't have to do this thing, but because it's hard to visualize, I think it's nice for me to give an example now and then so that you can kind of compare before and after. Although I guess, as I said, without having a picture, you're just gonna go back to the beginning of the video where I do the comparison and then look at them at the end, I guess. So this guy's problem was one of his problems. He was trying to be a white owlbear, like the owlbear from the Dungeons and Dragons movies, and he was in fact more of a gray owlbear. So I wanted to add back in more white. I think this tool is getting to be a little large now for what I want to do. I do have a smaller one of these. And I'm just going to live with the fact that underwing turned out weird because of the whole forgot to paint with the flap and stuff. I'll live with it. But if I was doing it to try to enter a contest, and there is a giant monsters category at ReaperCon. So this guy is not big enough to really be considered by a long shot. But for people who paint the dragons and the Cthulhu style monsters, Reaper has some big pieces, and it's a lot of work, but sometimes people can kind of overlook them because we're pretty invested in looking at, you know, people with faces and stuff. So there's a special award category for the giant monsters at ReaperCon. So if he was like 4 times as big as he is, I would go and fix those things, you know, if it was my intention to put him in the contest. And I still have to decide whether I'm going to put the little stripes on, but maybe I'll leave them as is and do the little stripes later. So I've gone to a brush I can control a little more because I really just want to make sure that the high parts, you know, the parts that are facing upwards and so on, get plenty of highlights. So even though I'm painting a white thing, I still want to bring out the shapes and the form and all that good stuff. And because he was a little too dark, it's going to be an effective way to do that, to add more white to them. I'm kind of, instead of dry brushing, I'm more like side brushing. So I'm not putting a ton of paint on my brush, but I'm also not taking any off on the paper towel or anything. But then I use the side against the texture, and the texture pulls the paint off. Should I be using a like nice Winsor Newton brush for this? Probably not, but here we are. It was the brush that came to hand. Maybe I will just go ahead and switch out. So yeah, I think he is based on a snowy owl, Senchobo. I think those were the owls in the pictures that I downloaded that have the little black stripes. But wait, there's more, because we also have Panda Owl Bear. We're gonna look at him next. And I love him. I have to show these to Ron. I have not shown Ron lately how much I'm failing to paint things the colors he expects them to be. I need to disappoint him. I haven't disappointed Ron enough lately. Oh, speaking of, so I was watching Reaper Live from last Thursday. That's the show. It runs at, Wendy will correct me if I'm wrong, hopefully, 7 p.m. on Thursdays. And that is the show where people from Reaper come on and show you previews and what miniatures are coming up next and give away prizes. And definitely, if you're into Reaper stuff, definitely a show to watch. 6 p.m. Central. So 7 p.m. my time. Like I said, I make that mistake. And I noticed Quindy was sad because she did not receive a Hall of Fame blue shirt when she was inducted into the what is now called the Ed Pugh. Hold on, I write this down. The Ed Pugh Hall of Fame, in honor of one of the late owners of Reaper that we have sadly lost. Which I think it's nice that we get to remember him through that. But Quinny was inducted last year and did not receive an awesome blue polyester shirt like the rest of us are forced to bring in our luggage and wear on the night that I'm about to talk about after I finish saying that Quinny is more than welcome to my shirt if she wants. It is long sleeve. It is long sleeve, and I'm to wear it in Texas in the summer after menopause. It's a lot. It's a lot for me. I think I ended up wearing it as a scarf last year. I'm like, oh my God. And then every year Ron teases me with, well, maybe we should get polo shirts or something. And then it never happens. And I'm like, Ron, why do you say this if it's not going to happen? But we can kind of share custody of my shirt so that, I'll wear it like half the night and you can wear it half the night. So the event that we wear the shirts at is when someone is inducted into the Hall of Fame, which used to happen on Saturday night before the award ceremony for the miniature contest. But this year will be happening at the meet and greet. So it is now the Ed Pugh Hall of Fame meet and greet. And there are some other changes, and there's a cool thing that you're going to get if you go to this event that I will show you momentarily after I figure out how to put, see, that's not what I wanted, white paint on his little tummy that is like very visible but not very brush accessible somehow. I can't decide if I made him look angry or startled. He's like, I was taking a bath. How rude. Get out of here. All right, so I will stop messing with the owlbear for a moment. Hopefully he looks whiter and the skin is not like insanely rosy anymore. And he's almost fixed other than his eyeballs. But let's come to my surprise. Because I have this to show off. So this is the miniature that people who attend the meet and greet will receive. There's going to be a triad of paints that, if I recall correctly, will include phthalo orange, phthalo green, and question mark, which I'm going to bet is phthalo blue. I'm not sure why Ron thought it wouldn't be phthalo blue. And a special pokey tool. It did not seem at the time of the show that he had decided whether it was going to be the one that's an owlbear or the one that's a cat dragon. Both sound amazing. And barbecue. So that sounds very tasty. But the big difference is now that the ticket's going to be $100. So you're getting this, you're getting the paints, there's going to be door prizes and other things given out. So I think it's worth it because it's going to be more food and better food than at the meet and greets usually. But there is, it is a higher cost. So this guy, they're only going to make 400. There are 400 tickets to the meet and greet. If any are unpurchased, it's going to go into the Reaper booth at ReaperCon. If there's still any left over, then they'll put it on the store, reapermini.com. The paint triad will be available to purchase. My guess would be that the pokey tools will also be as well, but they are kind of a pain to make, so there may be a limited amount of those. And why I say they're a pain to make, let me just find one and give you an example. Well, I can find two. This was the original classic one that I appear to have bent my pin. So there's like a mold, it's a two-piece mold. It's kind of like making an Easter dragon. An Easter dragon. I think there should be an Easter dragon, but it's actually an Easter bunny. So, where you've got that ridge around the Easter bunny. So you've got two halves. This part is going to be pewter, or they've done it with Bones USA as well. But this pin is really a pin. Like, none of these materials are sturdy enough that you could make like that and it's actually going to poke anything. So someone has to go in and put a pin in every section of the mold that's going to make one of those. So it's a more involved process than just making a guy. Like a guy, you just, you put it in the mold, you put the stuff in, the mold comes out, you wait until it cools down a little, you pop them out, you run it again if you want to. This one, every time you want to run it, you got to go in and put all the pins in again. So they don't always make like a bucket of those if they have a bunch of other stuff to make, which they do because I hear a ton of new miniatures are coming out of ReaperCon. The cat dragon pokey tool is designed to sit on the rim of your paint cup. Green users, that is so awesome. I bet that also means you could, like, if you had a flower pot, you could like poke it into the earth and it would kind of sit on the rim of your flower pot. I do not, so I will be using it on my paint cup. But Quindy, going back to the shirt, said what he told me last year is that he didn't have a shirt for me because he thought they were going to change the shirt, so he'd get me one of those instead. But no shirt materialized, and he shockingly clearly forgot about it entirely. I should probably go put a note in my diary, like my calendar right now, to like January 14th, text Ron and say, how about you work out that shirt situation for this year? Because, once ReaperCon starts getting closer and closer, there are just way too many things to do. So let's, we're getting good focus. I love, look how scary his teeth are. Like, he's just so wonderfully creepy and majestic simultaneously. He's super cool. So if you've seen one of these before, you know what these are. This is 3D printed. So Reaper has 3D printers now where they can do multiple things at a time. I don't know. To me, it's like we're living in the future moment. There are no mold lines. I didn't have to glue anything together. He's ready to go. I just got to take some of the, scrape off these little bumpies, which I can do with a knife, which is the way I like to clean if I can. And then I guess I probably need to, put something in there to attach him to a piece of wood or something else for awesome display purposes. Green User says, thank you, creepy is my thing. Oh, he's marvelously creepy, like, but also majestic. Like, I like the regal, you know, he's got the crown, and he's like classy creepy. The nice robe. This will be fun to go bananas with weathering, maybe, which is not what I normally do. I mean, it's fun to do something you don't normally do. So let me find a knife. I'm not gonna prep the whole thing right now, probably, because you know, I just have one. I need to make sure I don't mess them up. And I probably would wear I have another visor that I wear for like super close-up stuff. Yeah, so why don't I start on the fragile part? But yeah, see, those little things just pop off. And actually, I've got little tweezers somewhere. But then this is how I like to prep resin and other hard materials. Is you scrape, and then you can know that it's flat where you want it to be flat. So let's find, yeah, like right here. Nope, that's a thingy. That's not supposed to be there. So if you see that, just get the bulk of it off. Yep, didn't quite get the bulk. And sometimes, like, you'll still see the thing, but once the knife is moving smoothly over it, which it's not quite yet, it's like, then I know it's fine. So I don't worry about it if there's a visual artifact. Which I don't know that it happens so much with the 3D printing, but with traditional cast resins, it certainly seems to happen sometimes. So I know there are people who kind of do this with metal. I don't know how. I use files for metal. But I like these knives for the resin type hard things. And there's one that's going to be slightly more of a pain to get, although most of it will just pop right off. You know, these little things here, they just pop right off. So it looks worse than it is for cleanup. If you haven't seen the 3D printed stuff before, like, they just pop right off. And then usually I keep canned air around and I blow, so then I can get all the, because most of this is now shreds that I have from doing this. It's not actual issues. So this is like being able to get a one-piece fancy resin figure that is easy to clean up and has nice smooth surfaces and, you know, textures where you want texture, or where green users wanted texture, and none where there isn't. So this is, I remember so long ago, you know, if they could just get rid of mold lines, that would be, so then there's no mold lines. I'm so happy. But now I have to paint him. And as we all know, I don't typically paint large things, so this should be interesting. And then you might ask, why is my class on painting things of different sizes? And, you know, I'm going to practice more before I do it, but also doing, like, traditional art is kind of like doing things at bigger sizes. So I think I get some of the things you would want to or need to do. And also just from, you know, I've been a judge for, I don't know how long the ReaperCon Open's been going on as the ReaperCon Open, but I'm pretty sure the whole time I've been a judge. And so I've certainly seen a lot of, like, larger figures. Busts have become increasingly popular. And I've gone to other contests where I've been able to, like, view and assess them. So from a critical viewing point of view, I have formed opinions of things that are helpful to do with large miniatures. Some of which I don't know what the figure for my class is going to be yet, but not this guy, because he is, if you came in late, limited to people who go to the Reaper meet, the Ed Pugh Hall of Fame meet and greet, and then remaining ones will be sold at the booth during ReaperCon. So I'm going to put him back in his safe place, which really wasn't because of the figure. Like on my shelf, he's just out. But I'm like, in case the cats wander around, I'm gonna put a little padding in a box for him. I had to take him off of that shelf to have him nearby. Quindy has just had the bot tell you where you can get more information about ReaperCon, which if you're into miniatures and you haven't been to ReaperCon, you are missing out. Like, it is so fun to be in a room with like 1,500 other people who are into the same thing you are. 1,500 people aren't all in the room at the same time, but you know what I mean. All right, so our other owlbear contestant was Panda Owlbear, who overall, I think the paint, you know, the white is certainly whiter, so he's more successful on that front. You know, from a like color choices and the overall thing, I think he's pretty good. I'm not, like, I go back and forth on the claws, like they're standing out a bit more on the camera, I think, than they do to, you know, in the flesh. So I go back and forth on whether that warm color looks like it goes, I guess. Like, I almost feel like maybe I should have done, yeah, see, I feel like the color that this guy's claws were might look better. And that's just one of those, sometimes you can't tell. Like, I was using warm colors on the little skin part, and sometimes, you know, making something cool and warm as a contrast helps. So there was enough cool on him that I thought, well, I should make the claws warm and they'll stand out more. And then I feel like the exact opposite is true, because it worked with this guy, so he's overall warm and the claws are highlighted with blue, so it's a cooler color. I have not figured out yet why sometimes that works really well and then sometimes it doesn't. So I think I would probably want to repaint his claws that color if I were like gonna do that kind of thing, which I might. And then I think I need to bring some of the colors from the figure into the base and lighten some parts up, give it a little more life. I mean, maybe he lives in some kind of, you know, lifeless swamp, but I suspect, you know, he's a panda bear. He only eats bamboo as a side to, you know, tasty adventurers, but he's still gonna want to live somewhere where he can get all his bamboo and greenery and stuff. Quindy has said that some of my classes still have available spots. So in the class, I'm going to be talking about, like, some of it is going to be about, here's things you need to do more on you know, smaller human style figures, gaming scale figures. And here's the kind of thing that changes or that you need to do more of or less of or whatever as you go up in scale. So we're going to focus on the bigger scale, but in a way, because you contrast it to what you do on a regular scale figure, it is my expectation that it'll kind of help with the spectrum. And there will be a bust at that class. We are fairly confident. I mean, I guess it's possible there won't be because, you know, like I said with the Pokies, Reaper gets kind of crazy busy. But it was certainly the intention, and Ron wanted to do it. Like, I didn't start with this idea. I said, I'm wrestling with what to do for my class. Here's what I'm thinking. He's like, well, what if you had a bust for that? And I'm like, well, that would be super awesome. So if it doesn't work out, it's Ron's fault, basically, is what I'm saying. All right, so one of the things that I said wasn't so great about this guy is that even though the eyes are like a nice bright color and they seem like they're fairly light, if you look at it in like a darker situation, they don't pop quite as much as they should. So it just needs a little more blueness. I would say. Oh, did I not shake those ones? I thought I did. Oh well. Ron's fault, as all things are. Yes. Poor Ron. I feel bad for him sometimes, but you know, it's just, he makes it too much fun to blame him for things. That's where he went wrong. Yeah, we'll have to come up to him each wearing like one sleeve of the blue shirt or something. I don't think that's possible, but if it is, we can make him feel bad. That you don't have a shirt. And that I don't have a shirt that I won't sweat to death in. I mean, the hotel's usually nice and cool. Although I'm on the second floor again for my classes, and I'm hoping that whatever the problem was in that one room last year has now been addressed, because we were all like, oh my God, why is it so hot here? You know what, we'll use a tiny brush. All right, I have no idea if these are the blues that I initially used. Looking at it, I don't think so. I also don't think it matters that much. Eyes do have kind of color variations and those little lines, and I mean, he's almost big enough for me to put in some of that. Oh no, she's awake. She's awake. I'm afraid. Hi. Hi, no, why are you coming over here? You're not supposed to come over here. Hey. Nope. Do not go near the miniatures. No. Hi. Come say hi to everybody. Come say hi to everybody. Oh, you had such a nice long nap, didn't you? So there's the other cat. Tavi, aka the Menace. Oh, I know why you're up. We will bring your issue to the attention of Kevin. Kevin,
Yeah.
I think this cat wants her 4 o'clock dinner.
Yeah.
So yeah, go see Kev. He'll fix it. And that should keep her out of the miniatures for a few minutes. I don't know. My previous cats and I, we were always able to come to an understanding pretty quickly about the don't go in this area. But my office is set up a little differently now. I know, no, hi. Okay, you stay there, helper. This is something she does frequently. She's like, why don't I jump up here? And if I'm walking by, then she like grabs me. It's like, why aren't you petting me? That's why I jumped up here, for the petting. Please don't do things to my head. She's my little buddy. She always likes to be wherever I'm hanging out. And her sister likes to be with me too, but she really likes her sleep. So if I'm not allowing her to just lounge and flop all over me, sometimes she'll be like, no, I'm gonna go sit over there. I'm so pretty because of all the beauty rest I get, so I will talk to you later. Yeah, but you saw how fast she left when she figured out Kevin was going to the food area. She's like, ooh, the food. The food is great. So hopefully that, I want to see. No, it's not massively more saturated. Dang you, white. The struggle with painting things lighter colors and using the saturation. Oops. The struggle with making big strokes when you don't want to. So if I were very ambitious, I would try to put some little lines in. I mean, obviously not as much as on this guy, but in general. But I think that would, again, kind of reduce the impact of the bright blue, which I like. It's what gets you to his face. So I think I'm just gonna be happy with that. So he's not perfect or anything, but he is whiter now. I think his claws need to be just a little more on point, as it were. But so let's briefly look at this guy, who does not have the base problem, really. I mean, it's a very small base, but it is at least a little more, not quite as dark and dreary. I think I could go even like a little more, bright yellow green on the ends of the feet. It's another one of those things that it looks really good on camera, but once you start getting it in different lighting, it doesn't kind of pop quite as much as I had hoped. But I don't think I'm going to change that because I did little textures and stuff. I should probably fix this. So that is very clearly a boo-boo. I mean, will I fix it? I don't know. But if I were going to enter him in a contest, certainly I should fix that. Probably needs a little more highlight on those things, whatever they are, mouth tentacles. And I always forget what this guy is, because in my head I just call him Eye Brain Monster. Something Tyrant? Quindy knows. I'm not 100% happy with the gold, but I can't figure out what else to do instead. Now, I have a question for you all. I did the eyeball like this. There's no white of the eye, and I think that might be what looks weird. So I haven't done the little white reflection thing. And also I figure since there's like gloss on the brain part to try to look fluidy, and I use metallics, so I'm using paint texture. Hive Warden, I wasn't even close. Typically. So if you go to Reaper Mini, actually you can just search the web even. It's 44023 is the SKU number on that one. Or Hive Warden, all one word. So I think it'll look better. It'll look like it fits better once it's got the gloss and stuff. But now I'm wondering if it just is kind of weird because why isn't there like a white of the eyes? So I guess let me know if you feel like there should be a white of the eye around that, or if because he's like a monster dude, that is the way it should be. These were such weird colors that I did not bring any of with me. So can I fix him? Who knows? I must have a green somewhere. Oh, I got that. Good enough. And it's way brighter, more intense of a green than we use on the guy. But we've been talking about how we make things less intense. So gray is one method, but complementary colors, so colors that are across from one another on the color wheel, is another. Yeah, so it even says on the color wheel complementary. So pink is like in the red realm. We got green is across from it. But near complement, like don't freak out about, you've got to know the exact color that is opposite. What is the exact red that is opposite this green? I don't know. But this is kind of pinky. It's in the ballpark. I'm going to give it a shot. It was a little light, but the area I'm going to work on is light. So I think it was fun. I will do my comparison thing again. So that's the new color. And that's the original color. These are both slightly transparent colors. And this is the pinky color. If that hadn't worked, I could just grab another red / pink and try again. Like maybe I'm actually gonna try this one because this looks a little lighter than I expected. So let's try this one. Just to see. I mean, and this is much less, you know, this isn't as pure a color. And yes, I think that actually ends up making it a little more like what I wanted. Which it's just about brown at this point, which are the kind of greens that are on him. I might add just a little smidge more of the green, or have it as an option at least. And the truth is, these things are some kind of weird mix of some of the purples and pinks and whatever that I was using. Like, clearly I don't even remember. Hey, Sakurai. Well, I was going to say you missed a preview, but you're local, so you've probably seen it in real life. But just for a sec, I'll get him back in there. The meet and greet. Awesome. Spooky bust. So I'm just kind of making stuff up here very much. And hoping that it doesn't like completely clash with what I already did. This is not the kind of miniature that I would recommend starting, you know, testing the idea out of repaints. Because the colors on the green are just like weird. And there's little boo-boos. Oh no, though I was trying to do veins, but they look like boo-boos now, so I feel like I probably should fix those. But, you know, starting with a kind of clearer color figure for doing touch-ups. But it's really the value. The value is going to be the key thing to worry about. You do not have to match the colors exactly. The only reason, you know, I would say this isn't the kind of figure I would start with is that I know I was mixing weird things together. Like these are not out of the pot colors. I had a basic set of colors and then I just mixed stuff. So it's not really, you know, green or purple. It's kind of this weird both thing. And I don't have the kinds of, I don't really have the kinds of colors that I used for that near me. Because for some reason I think I decided that I was just going to live with that when I was grabbing colors before the show. And apparently I changed my mind. This paint being slightly transparent will hopefully work to my advantage. And just kind of unifying some stuff. So just wanted to pop that a little more, because you know this is like the focal point, and I have seen no opinions about whether he needs a white of the eye or he's good. He's good with the weird all iris eye. Well, okay, he's got a pupil too. So this thing is kind of painted in the same color, but it's like not a focal point of attention, so I'm not gonna mess with it. Weird colors are good, Zachary says. All right. Let's see. How is my white? Because he does need one thing. He needs his little reflection thingy. Which even on a larger figure can still be kind of a, you know, heart stressing moment. But definitely a lot more room to work than on a regular figure. And it's fun. The Bonesylvanians from Reaper, you can have a lot of fun with this kind of thing from them. I need a little bit of this. I think I need to break the eye reflection up just a little. A little less. Bonesylvanians are super fun and cute. And I was intimidated when I first started to paint them. Because I've never really done, but prior to that I'd never really done like anime style stuff or cartoony stuff. And it was especially the eyes. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I do these eyes? And I asked a friend of mine who has painted that type of figure for some advice. And then once I sat down and started doing it, it was like super fun. Thanks, It's a Casualty. I got a picture of a human eye online and looked at it to try to see how those little striations worked and stuff, and then used different colors to try to duplicate that effect. And then it's just like the pupil part, it's softened just a little bit around the edge because it's, you know, it's a natural thing. It's not like a really sharp line like, you know, on this label. That's a really sharp line, and you don't see that a lot in nature. So I just softened up the edge just a little bit. But I do think it needs gloss still. Because, you know, he's got gloss on his brain goo. Which I did also look at a brain covered in goo before I painted the brain. And I don't necessarily recommend doing that research. That was a lot, but it did help me see like for the this guy, I kind of want to, you know, I want to look at some real examples of human bodies that have been decayed in various conditions, but I'm not sure how to do the Google search for that and not see things that will scar me for life. So that's my dilemma there. And I actually live in the town where the famous body farm is. Dr. Bill Blass. Not that I can go tour that to answer my question, because I'm pretty sure that they don't let me do that. My mother actually asked that when I moved here. She's like, can we take a tour of the body farm? And I'm like, I don't think so. They respect the people who have donated their bodies to science and treat them. They don't turn them into tourist attractions. So I love matte paints, as anyone who's ever been here before knows, but things do look dark, you know, glossy finish does look darker, and sometimes a little more saturated, because I can see the blue coming up in the shadows now. So most of the time I just live with that, but because this guy had other kind of, you know, special effects paints, instead of everything being painted, I wanted to make his eye, you know, nice and wet. And I mean, it's probably, it really is wet right now. It'll probably come down a little, but I felt like he needed the full gloss eye experience. Yeah, that actually helps a lot. I was kind of like, man, I spent so much time on that eye. Why don't I like it anymore? I think I was just waiting, just some tiny, tiny bubbles. Just waiting for the gloss. So that is the Hive Warden, I'm told. Or the Eye Brain Monster, as he is in my work. I don't think he necessarily looks like he's gonna smack you. Like I could see using him in an adventure where he's like someone you're consulting for esoteric knowledge and whatnot. And he's like, well, actually, that's his well, actually tentacle. I think he looks friendly too, Quinty. Slightly befuddled. I mean, you've interrupted him in the middle of his reading, and he's like, what? Who are these people? But I had fun painting something there. I am sorry that I did that. Like, I did not notice until I took pictures of it, and I'm like, dang it. So we did a little critique and touch up on him. We did some critique and touch up on this guy. Yeah, I think those starry eyes are better now. And he's much whiter. And I didn't really do anything on this guy. He doesn't need a ton. I still feel like maybe I should change him to have the same, claw color as this one. And I do need to at least give him a reflection or something in his eye, but I got to give him something for the eye. It's a casualty, so I have painted all of this guy on stream. I unfortunately do not remember which streams, but Reaper catalogs all of the shows on their YouTube channel, so it's there somewhere. A couple of, the pink part was near Valentine's Day, not last year, but the year before, I think, because I was trying to show that you can paint pinks that aren't lovey-dovey. Like, you can use pink for a variety of things. And then the tentacles were on a later show. Actually, 2, I believe, because I did like a wet blending thing first and then did the little textures and stuff. And there's just, there's a bunch of tentacles. It took a minute. So I don't know what color eyes this guy should have, but not just plain black, I figure. But I will think about that, or maybe I'll fix him up on the next stream. We've done 2 critique ones in a row now. I feel like maybe I should go, do something else. Maybe I'll, finish up this Evil Mermaid finally. Or if there's anything you'd ever like to see me do, feel free to say in chat or drop me a message, and I'll see what I can do. So otherwise, you guys just leave me to wander off on my own, and you get whatever my ADD says I want to do Monday morning. So I don't want to touch this, but I think it's probably drier by now, and it still looks pretty cool. I'm honestly a little surprised at just how much difference the gloss thing made. So I see we actually still have a few minutes. So should I work on some claw fixing? I did bring those colors, which are, so there's Snow Shadow, Twilight Blue, and then I couldn't actually find Midnight Blue, but on my shelf, which is concerning to me because I like it. But, blue liner's close enough for making the darker color. But these, so, I mean, if we compare them to the blues I was using on that guy's eye, so these are definitely less saturated blues. And I find I like how that looks for highlighting black. If I want kind of a blue black, it's not like in your face blue black, but it still has that touch of blue, and particularly on something with so much neutral color. I see that you're back, Miss Trouble Kitty. Nope, you're not back. Now you're leaving. Nope, now you're coming back. Now you're gonna jump around and knock things on the floor. That's fine. We're not nearly entertaining enough, think that's the problem. Well, she got a miniature in the blister that I had put aside to put away somewhere, and now she's just knocking that around the floor like you do when you're an insane cat. And you're very bored. Because your people don't do enough fun things with string. But then sometimes when I'm playing with her, she gets bored of that really quickly, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do exactly here, kitty? There's a toy I want to get her. We had it before, and it was kind of big. So we eventually got rid of it, but it's like a rug where you can, there's like a flat rug, and then there's like a rug with Velcro parts and holes in it, so you can kind of put it on the floor and make these little caves and put toys in the caves. And based on the other things she likes, I think she would get a big kick out of that. And maybe stop destroying everything. Well, she doesn't destroy everything. She messes with everything. And she does chew on a lot of things. So I am careful about paper and books, because I found that out pretty quick, the hard way. It's like, oh, well, I'm glad that this book that you put a bunch of tooth marks in isn't like my favorite book ever or something. I mean, I think books are to be read. I'm not like super precious with books, but I also didn't, you know, now I'm looking at it, I think I did use blue. Huh. That's fine. But this should work. Just make his claws a little shinier. And fix the places where I mess them up. When I was doing more drivers. The snow triad, I can't remember what it's called as a triad. It also, they aren't like super opaque paints, so they're a little easier to work with when you're working with black and white, because they are also, most things you can use to highlight black are going to also work as shading colors for white. You just, you know, I'm only going to stay here for white. Oh, wow, definitely messed up that part. Wendy has posted a link to the YouTube channel in chat. And then if I do decide this needs to be a little more blue, I can get like clear blue or another like intense but somewhat transparent blue and just kind of do a glaze and pop it up. I don't know if you can hear the like really repetitive bird that is outside my window right now. He needs a new song. Oh, Quindy, here's the bird. You do not currently hear a purring cat. Maybe that's my air conditioning. I think the cat wandered off. She's funny about dinner. It's like she'll come running and then she won't eat, or she won't go all the way down the hallway. She'll just kind of flop in the middle, and it's like, what are you doing? But then 10 minutes later, she's like, oh, right, my dinner. And then she goes and eats. It's like, okay. But it's like she and her sister are an example of the cruelty of genetics, I think, because her sister's very slender, even though she probably is more of a snack seeker than Tavi. But Tavi, we just weighed them. I mean, we just weighed them the, kind of unofficial way where you weigh yourself and then you hold a cat and you weigh yourself again. So it's not as precise as what they do at the vet. But what we got was 2 pounds difference between them. So Chai, who is pretty slender, I mean, you can like feel her ribs and everything quite a bit, even the little bumps on her back and stuff, was 10 pounds, and Tavi was 12. And Corbin was two Chais. 2 Chais stuck together would be a Corbin. And our vet has said stuff like, well, that's an orange cat thing. It's like, okay, is that consoling? I'm not sure that's consoling. He has kind of bad gums, which is also an orange cat thing. What else did she claim was an orange cat thing? A little freckle, like he has places on his mouth and I think his ears that are developing more and more dark spots over time. And that is an orange cat thing, I guess. I don't know about all the stuff where the orange cats only have one brain cell. I don't know if I support that theory, but then I'm the crazy person who got 2 torties because I'm like, tortitude, whatever. But apparently there are some physical things about being orange. And Quinny is confirming that it gets super freckly. It was like, oh my gosh, it was very surprising how many freckles he's developed, like around his gums and his mouth. It just looks funny when he opens his mouth sometimes. But then he is just a funny little guy in general. He makes us laugh a lot. He's got this weird thing of simultaneously being, the kick-ass hunter and the sad baby who needs us to open the door and give him a snack. It's like in a person, that would be like an annoying combination. But on Corbin, it's adorable. Just trying to make really tiny little light blue bits for shine. That, I don't know if it is me rubbing paint off. Let's slap some of this on just in case. I suspect it was from the dry brushing. All right, I'm going to stop fiddling with him because I bet Quindy's like, hello, it's 5 now. But, I didn't want to go under time. That's like old as. I still think that this guy would probably look better with those colored claws too. But okay, that is what we did for today. We'll take one more look at the awesome figure that you can get at the meet and greet, the Ed Pugh Hall of Fame meet and greet at ReaperCon, and possibly at the Reaper booth after that. I may try to paint some of them on the show. I think I want to start with airbrush, so I don't know how to do that on stream. So I don't think I would even attempt to not spray everything in sight, which currently is a lot of technology that you can't see, but I can see. So I probably won't bring them on until I'm past the spraying point. But thanks for coming, everyone. It was great to get to hang out with you. And oh, do you want to come back and say hello again? Come on. Well, now I'm encouraging you to do things you're not supposed to do. No, do not chew on brushes. That's definitely on the do not do list. Oh my gosh, that's why she's the menace. We should have called her Dennis. But Quindy's gonna find us a raid, and she's shared my blog information and stuff. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Hopefully I will be far enough along on the Hall of Fame miniature to get that on stream and do some stuff. Because, you know, if it was 54 days until ReaperCon on Thursday, now it's less than that. 50 days? 50 days? That, oh goodness, I shouldn't have thought about that. Okay, well, we are going to be raiding Mighty Lancer. Say hi, spread the Reaper love, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.